Going to start the recording and then I'm going to let everybody in. And Joe, we will kick things off. I'm going to spotlight it on you and I will let you know when everybody's in. All right, Joe, it is 1:16. I think we can kick everything off.
Great. Thanks, Ben. I appreciate everybody joining us today. My name is Joe Shields. I'm the CEO of Transparency RX, a coalition led by transparent PBMs and affiliated partners. We're the largest association of our kind in the country, representing over 18 companies now and growing. So I appreciate everybody taking their time to hear from us this week. I know travel and weather issues have impacted all of us, among other things. So everybody's sort of adapting accordingly with their schedule. We're here today because we believe Congress will be taking meaningful action, bipartisan steps to correct a prescription drug market that, quite frankly, has been allowed to drift too far from its purpose. For too long, patients and employers and plan sponsors have been trapped in a system defined by opaque pricing, misaligned incentives, and middlemen who profit most when drug costs more, not less. The reforms included in the current government funding package are not radical, they're corrective. They restore basic market discipline by asserting a simple principle: rebates and discounts belong to the plan and the patient, not to intermediaries, not to offshore entities, not to accounting structures designed to obscure where dollars actually go. This package does something important. It recognizes that a PBM ecosystem is no longer just PBMs. It includes brokers, rebate aggregators, affiliated GPOs, third-party entities that sit between manufacturers and plans. And for the first time, Congress is making clear that transparency must apply to that supply chain. In commercial and ERISA-governed markets, these reforms strengthen contract transparency, audit rights, and reporting requirements, giving plan fiduciaries real visibility into rebate arrangements, including those involving aggregators and affiliate entities. They show how markets are supposed to work. The bill establishes a clear expectation of full rebate pass-through to plans with appropriate protections for innocent fiduciaries. Importantly, these reforms align closely with President Trump's stated healthcare priorities: a focus on middlemen, PBM rebates, broker-driven distortions, and a broader goal of building a more resilient and American-centered pharmacy supply chain. Key bipartisan leaders like Senator Cassidy from Louisiana and Senator Sanders, Senator Crapo, Senator Wyden, and many in the House, including the Speaker, deserve credit for their stewardship on these priorities and steadfast persistence to move these changes through. Fundamentally, we believe these bills are an important first step, which restore competition by removing hidden incentives that warp decision-making and open up markets. More acutely, the bills are not an attack on PBMs of any kind, but a validation between business practices. Legacy structures built on spread pricing, rebate arbitrage, and complexity for complexity's sake, models that research consistently show increase patient costs and undermine health outcomes, should not be bolstered by public policy or taxpayers. They should be challenged by it. We look forward to empowering solutions to harness true transparency, and we'll work with Congress, the administration, and stakeholders across the healthcare system to build on progress. With that, I'm pleased to turn to our leaders who are making transparency work on the ground for millions and millions of patients and plans, who work directly on how these reforms will matter to the market and to plan sponsors specifically. Our first speaker is Lynn Riley, who's president of Pharmacy Benefit Dimensions, PBDRX. Lynn?
Thank you, Joe. As you said, I'm Lynn Riley, the president of Pharmacy Benefit Dimensions, located in Buffalo, New York, representing about 500,000 members in both the commercial and Medicare spaces. These bipartisan reforms recognize a basic truth: that rebates and discounts should flow directly to plans and members without detours, hidden markups, or games. At Pharmacy Benefit Dimensions, this is not new. It's what we've been doing for 25 years, putting patients before profiting and partnering with our providers in the community to keep medications affordable. In fact, we've been passing back 100% of eligible rebates and discounts in both commercial and Medicare for decades, long before transparency became cool or a buzzword. We were born out of a not-for-profit health plan with the question of how do we keep drugs affordable? And even back then, we learned you can't manage what you can't see. And that these reforms, Congress is trying to push that same standard across the system. In commercial and ERISA plans, strong audit rights bring real accountability, especially around broker and consultant compensation. We've seen, for example, these award fees of 50,000 to 250,000 just to a broker to make a deal. And that 250,000 I mentioned was actually for a 2,500 life retiree group. That's about $100 per person per year in cost that has nothing to do with patient care or drug price. In Medicare Part D, delinking PBM compensation from list prices also matters because it reduces incentives that steer patients toward high-cost drugs. So, for example, formularies may favor a brand drug, which can cost about $2,500, even though a generic can deliver the same outcomes for under $10. And when we talk about affordability, we also have to talk about specialty medications. For example, there's a generic version of a leukemia drug that can be accessed for around $1,800. But in vertically integrated models, employers can be charged closer to $5,300 for the exact same model through spread pricing and related markups. The bottom line, in my opinion, is that these PBM reforms reward transparency and value and challenge the business models that have been built on opaque and misaligned incentives. We welcome them, and we're proud to stand behind the reforms that move this system in the right direction, which is patients before profits. Thank you, Joe.
Thanks, Lynn. Next, we have up Jeff Malone with RX Preferred Benefits. Jeff?
Hey, thanks, Joe. Good afternoon, everyone. Jeff Malone, RX Preferred Benefits, located in Nashville, Tennessee. The new PBM provisions reflect what employers and plan sponsors have been calling for many years: meaningful transparency, enforceable accountability, and verifiable outcomes. These are not new concepts, but this is the first time that they've been clearly articulated as requirements rather than optional best practices. For too long, plan sponsors have been asked to rely on representations that could not be independently validated. Full rebate pass-through and explicit audit rights fundamentally change that dynamic by allowing plan sponsors to confirm savings directly, trace dollars through the system, and reconcile results against contractual obligations, rather than relying on opaque black box reporting. At RX Preferred, we've built our model around these principles for years: full rebate pass-through, contractual audit rights, and transparent reporting, because we believe transparency should be structural and not optional. The language in the bill also appropriately addresses accountability across the broader rebate supply chain. Limited oversight of rebate aggregators, intermediaries, and broker arrangements have created opportunities for value to exit the system without sufficient transparency, governance, or control, sometimes even outside of U.S. jurisdiction. Closing those gaps is necessary to ensure dollars intended for employer plans and patient care are retained, traceable, and properly accounted for. Ultimately, this language establishes a clear expectation. Transparency must be real, accountability must be enforceable, and savings must be provable. The markets has had flexibility now. Now it has standards. The shift is essential to restoring trust, protecting plan sponsors, and ensuring fiduciary responsibilities are clearly defined and consistently met. Thanks, Joe.
Jeff, thank you very much. Next, we have up Amy Baker, CEO of Justify RX. Amy?
Thanks, Joe. As Joe said, I'm Amy Baker, CEO of Justify RX Collective in Louisville, Kentucky. These reforms are important. Congress is finally recognizing that rebate aggregators are real actors in the drug supply chain and that transparency must apply to everyone, not just PBMs. Section 6701 explicitly defines applicable entities to include rebate aggregators and affiliated third parties, ensuring that reporting, auditability, and disclosure obligations extend across the full rebate chain, not just the PBM layer. The bill makes clear that neither PBMs nor affiliated aggregators can restrict access to information by HHS or plan fiduciaries, closing loopholes that allowed rebate dollars, often routed offshore, to escape scrutiny. For transparent GPOs or models like ours here at Justify RX Collective, this isn't disruptive, it's affirming, as we already operate this way. These reforms simply ensure the market stops rewarding complexity, opacity, and arbitrage over clarity and value. In short, Congress is drawing a bright line between aggregation that serves plans and aggregation that serves middlemen, and that's a healthy correction for the entire market. The devil is in the details. Transparency cannot hit a wall. It needs to flow all the way from the manufacturer to the payer, including non-affiliated aggregators. Thanks, Joe.
Thank you. Wes Hardwick, CEO of Med1 is next.
Thanks, Joe. Yeah, my name is Wes Hardwick. I'm the CEO of Med1. We're based in Dubuque, Iowa, celebrating our 27th year in business. Our company was founded by my father and grew out of our family pharmacy chain called Hardick Drug that was established in 1904 by my great-grandfather, and we're recognized today as one of the oldest continuously owned and operated family pharmacy chains in the country. Dad saw that discrepancy between what he was getting billed from the insurance company and what his pharmacy got paid, and just the sheer amount of money that was being siphoned out of our community. And so under spread pricing models, the costs rise for plan sponsors and patients while reimbursements to pharmacies fall. He saw that firsthand and he decided to act on it. And in that scenario, everyone loses except the PBM that's extracting the spread. Our view here at Med1 and like many others on the call is that transparency isn't an option, it's table stakes. When pricing is clear and aligned, prescription benefits become more affordable, accessible, and sustainable. And so we don't see these current policy reforms as anti-PBM. Instead, they draw a necessary line between responsible operators and those whose business models depend on hidden revenue streams and spread pricing. And we feel like that distinction is long overdue. Thanks, Joe, and thanks everyone else for joining.
Thanks, Wes. Leanne Boyd, founder and CEO of Livinity.
Thank you. It's great to join this very important conversation. I am Leanne Boyd, CEO and founder here at Livinity. We're based in Louisiana, and we serve a little over 1 million employer-sponsored plan lives. I wanted to start by saying how important these potential PBM reforms that have been proposed, they would actually represent, in my book, the most significant federal step we've had in years to improve how pharmacy benefits are managed across the country. And it will be a very meaningful advance for patients, for pharmacies, for plan sponsors, like Wes and others. As a pharmacist, we understand very clearly how prescription drug costs and access to medications not only affect families, but the workplaces and the employers that we serve. Nearly 7 in 10 Americans will rely on a daily medication. So these reforms are very, very important and timely. We started Livinity 15 years ago. We founded Livinity to build a transparent, clinically focused PBM because we believed that the system could work better for patients and plan sponsors. And our results over these past 15 years have validated that belief and demonstrated it at scale. Transparency brings clarity to the economics, and it leads to better informed decisions. And as Wes was saying, when pricing is clear, plan sponsors can design smarter benefits. They can help manage their costs way more effectively. They can protect access to needed medications. They can even educate their own consumers. And this does lead to a more sustainable prescription drug benefit for everyone. These reforms move the system in the right direction. Transparency and drug pricing is foundational. It's foundational to lowering cost. It's foundational to improving patient outcomes. And thank you again for the opportunity to join this collective voice and showing support for these reform provisions.
Thanks, Leanne. Next, we have Eric Cannon from Scripius and Select Health. Eric.
Thank you, Joe. Eric Cannon, Chief Commercial Officer and General Manager of Scripius. Scripius is a nonprofit PBM wholly owned by Intermountain Health and Select Health in Salt Lake City, Utah. Scripius was born in 1998 out of a desire for more transparency. We needed complete transparency and complete access to information. Today, we still encounter many potential clients that have no access to their claims data and information, even though it is data that they technically own and should have ready access to. We negotiate all of our contracts directly with the manufacturers, again, moving towards direct transparency and openness, eliminating the middleman and allowing us to pass that savings on to each of our clients. We're excited to see this legislation proposed, and as many of my colleagues have so eloquently stated, there is a real need for more transparency in the PBM market. Thank you. Appreciate your time.
Thanks, Eric. Next up, Alan Paneer, Senior Vice President with Smith RX. Alan?
Thanks, Joe. At Smith RX, we've always believed that the path to lowering drug costs and better patient outcomes is paved with transparency. Much like the others that have spoken today, Smith RX's success serving thousands of plan sponsors and over 1.5 million members is further evidence that a pass-through and transparent business model is one that is viable and has been requested by employers across the country. That's why we welcome the conversation surrounding the currently proposed government funding package as a vital step towards modernizing our industry. First, from an operational perspective, this bill brings much needed clarity and consistency to PBM contracting. For too long, the industry has operated in a gray area of vague promises. By mandating transparency regarding pricing guarantees and cost performance measures, this legislation ensures that when a PBM promises savings, those savings are real, defined, and deliverable. It levels the playing field for agile, transparent partners like us. Second, the move towards standardized definitions and reporting is a game changer. By codifying exactly what constitutes a generic drug, a rebate, or a discount, and requiring standard machine-readable reports, this bill replaces subjectivity with hard data. We are moving away from disputes over contract interpretation to a system where compliance is measurable and objective. This doesn't just help regulators, it helps our clients, which are employers and health plans, so that they know exactly what they're paying for. Crucially, this bill establishes robust protections for the truth. The specific provisions for confidentiality reporting of violations and the strict anti-retaliation clauses create a safe environment for problems to be raised. Whether it is a pharmacy or a plan sponsor, stakeholders must be able to flag issues without fear of coercion or losing access to networks. Ultimately, transparency is how markets self-correct. When information flows freely and bad actors are held accountable, competition thrives, and the market naturally improves over time. We support these reforms because they align with the future we are already building, a future where healthcare is honest, efficient, and affordable. Thank you, Joe.
Thanks, Alan. And last up is Greg Baker, CEO of Affirmed RX. Greg?
Thanks, Joe. Good afternoon, all. I wish I could say we saved the best for last, but with this esteemed group of pharmacy leaders here, I can't actually say that. Just excited to be here with, again, such a committed and passionate group of people who fight every single day to fix one of the biggest problems of the past generation. It impacts corporations, it impacts American families, and frankly, it impacts our economy directly. Because for too long, people don't know what they're paying for their drugs. You all have probably experienced walking up to a pharmacy counter and you don't know what to expect. Employers don't know what to expect their monthly and annual pharmacy costs are. And as we continue to watch year after year after year, the incumbents in this industry tell people that they're going to get a better rate and a better discount and higher rebates, and yet costs keep spiraling up, as do their profits. I'm excited to watch Congress finally act upon the evidence that they now have in front of them. We personally have spoken in front of the Oversight and Accountability Committee on the House side. We've talked and also testified to the Workforce and Education Committees. Congress has done very good diligence over the last several years to look at this reason why Americans' pharmacy costs continue to go up, and yet we lag behind most of the rest of the world when it comes to outcomes. This transparency starts to change all of those metrics. People will now know what they're paying for drugs. They will be able to see what costs are associated with a PBM's efforts to run their plans. All of the required pass-through and standard definitions will close the door on many of the manipulations that the incumbent industry has used for decades now, and the accounting tricks that they continue to also push forth, sometimes with coercion and collaboration with consultants who are also supposed to be acting in their client's best interest. This is the way that you create a system that rewards transparency, lower costs, and improve outcomes. And the really elegant way is you do it without government price setting. So when we can have transparency and we allow people to know what they're paying for things, and you cannot manipulate the system anymore, we will see lower costs. We will see better outcomes. And we're very excited that at some point in time, hopefully in the near future, Americans won't have a scary unknown when they walk to a pharmacy counter because they will be getting the right drug at the right cost. Thank you, Joe.
Thanks, Greg. Now we're happy to open it up for questions. I know we had one already in the chat related to some late reporting in terms of the overall package of the budget and appropriations bills. Our expectation is to remain optimistic that those bills will see passage. There's obviously a sort of heated and complex conversation happening around Department of Homeland Security and funding associated with that specifically. There's public reporting that there's at least strong consideration as well that they're going to divorce DHS funding from the other appropriations packages and move forward with them, of which, frankly, members on both sides of the aisle continue to report they have no opposition to. So we remain optimistic that leaders will find a solution to the current challenges and move forward with the legislation that's already been passed out of the House and the text that it has enjoyed wide bipartisan support, frankly, for a number of years, record levels of bipartisan support in terms of votes out of committees and the like, and we'll continue to support that language so that it can get through the Senate and ultimately get to President Trump's desk and signed into law. Happy to take other questions and see what inquiries members of the press have first for those that are here. Noah Tong has a question. I can just read it out loud. Noah, if that's okay. For you, it seems difficult to discern sometimes whether changes PBMs are making to their business practices are notable to the company's bottom line. When you think about these reforms, how impactful could they be? Have significant impact, or is Congress a step or two behind the insurers? We'll have to move away from other tactics by the time this passes. And there was a separate question related to spread pricing, which I'll get to in a minute specifically. Any of the members can weigh in on this. In our view, this is a significant step forward, although I think we're all sensitive to the fact that the larger competitors have been particularly creative at legal structures and other mechanisms to avoid compliance structures, whether that's been at the state level or even past federal efforts to consolidated CAA compliance issues, sort of rings to mind. But this feels different, candidly, in terms of, I would say, the forcefulness and the comprehensiveness of the language that's currently in the bill, including, as we've tried to highlight, the fact that a lot of the disclosure requirements run through the entire PBM ecosystem would impact both GPOs, rebate aggregators, PBMs themselves, and other affiliated structures associated with PBMs. There's, as Amy alluded to, I think in her statement, the definition of what's considered an affiliated entity to the PBM is pretty wide, candidly, and we think it probably covers most of the creative thinking that larger PBMs may come up with in terms of their compliance. And the truth is, the larger competitors have already said that they're 99.9%, and this is based on testimony from last week, compliant to pass through to begin with. So they should just honor their commitment and not be subject to audits and other sort of reputational challenges as they have been in the past. The state of Illinois, found when they testified in the past that they were 100% pass through, that they failed to pass through nearly $40 million, $50 million worth of rebates. I think now at a national level, those type of practices will garner more attention and, frankly, stronger enforcement. And so those are the type of things that ultimately can change the marketplace and hopefully open it up to true transparency and actors that will operate different in a competitive marketplace. If other leaders have thoughts, happy to hear it. Alan, did you have something or?
Yeah, I think just initial feedback, I do think, no, you're right in terms of big health and their ability to foresee changes in the market and make adjustments to their business models. I think, as Greg mentioned, what this does is helps provide more information for plan sponsors so that they can make informed decisions. I do think in order for the market to truly change, that employers will need to vote with their decisions, right? And select more aligned partners within the healthcare ecosystem. And this legislation helps establish a framework for that so that they can make a more informed decision than they can today.
We had a question about the spread pricing
Joe,
requirement.
just real quick, Leanne, did you have a comment you
Yeah.
wanted to?
Sure, go ahead.
Sure. I was just going to echo that with the provisions focused on the rebate transparency, the requirement for pass-through. I think they're very material with how we see costs change down to the individual plan sponsors and patient levels. I think Alan covered that very, very well. I do think it will force some big changes in business practices and models. We'll be yet to see how those practices evolve, as I'm sure PBMs have been anticipating needing to make changes around some of these practices. But I do think the fact that the focus is materially around rebates is significant to seeing those changes come through.
Yeah. We had a question related to the Medicaid provision. The spread pricing ban in Medicaid was taken out. As we understand it, that was related to some issues coming out of CBO and scoring associated with that. Obviously, we've been supportive of bans on spread at a federal level specifically. That being said, I think, for the broader context of the market, it sort of speaks to the nature as to why these sets of provisions really aren't an attack on PBMs. There isn't a ban on spread. And so in theory, if you want to continue with spread pricing practices, you can do so. The sort of preferences and the articulation in the bills is to take a transparent sort of approach to it. But what it does require is if you're taking a spread-based approach, that you need to disclose those requirements or that approach in meaningful sort of fashion. So from our vantage point, it sort of ushers in a sort of meaningful level, or potentially a more meaningful level of competition, as Alan said a minute ago, with better data for employers. And there's other work to do. There's a series of things that were alluded to in terms of some of the challenges that still exist in the market that don't allow transparent PBMs truly to scale and allow employers to have the true ability to shop for any PBM of their choice. We had another question, I believe, related to the delinking provision. I'll just throw this out to the group, but which types of drugs do you expect to be most impacted by the delinking provision, which is in Medicare Part D, which is intended to disincentivize PBMs from favoring higher WAC price products? I don't know if Lynn's still on the call, or if not, Alan, maybe if you have thoughts on that specifically, or Greg, given the Medicare part of that specifically.
Joe, it's Amy. I'm happy to weigh in here. We're not doing contracting today for Medicare, but I think it's where you see large differences in that WAC cost. So a prime example would be where you've got biosimilars in the market, but PBMs continue to prefer the innovator product and not add biosimilars, or add the high WAC biosimilars over low WAC biosimilars. All that does is really drive higher rebates, but also higher fees in turn based on that higher WAC. So it's more money in their pocket. And that's true really for any line of business.
Great. Anybody have anything to add to that? And there's another question related to a Department of Labor rule. So I'll read the question so everybody can hear it. I think there's a Department of Labor proposed rule that's due out to be posted soon. Yes, that's correct, Gabrielle. And we've been in discussions with them titled Improving Transparency in the Pharmacy Benefit Manager Fee Disclosure. Have you been following the rule? And if so, what thoughts do you have on it? Our understanding is that the rule's been, sort of bantied about for at least since the middle of the summer. Certainly, we're hopeful to see it posted and it receive comments and response. And generally speaking, from what we know of what the Department of Labor may do with it, that we'd be supportive of it. But we want to obviously see the text of it. it will likely track with a lot of the provisions that are being articulated here in the proposed legislation as well, particularly related to broker disclosures and disclosure requirements for brokers and consultants. But we want to see sort of more details coming out. We have our representative government affairs staff here with us as well from Aaron Fox. Daniel, if you have any other thoughts on that, as to what the regs may look like from the Department of Labor, specifically in light of what with this federal legislation that's being actively.
No, I mean, Joe, you participated in a 12866 meeting with some other industry stakeholders to meet with the Department of Labor regarding the pending rule. We're interested to see how it impacts Section 408(b)(2) and are eager for the agency to roll out the notice of proposed rulemaking so that we can participate in the comment period.
Great.
Joe, it's Greg. I would just like to add, especially from the Department of Labor perspective, we really appreciate how the Department of Labor is coming at this to defend the ERISA responsibilities and fiduciary requirements associated with the commercial side of the market and plan sponsors. As Joe and Daniel both said, the devil is always in the details when it comes to these types of initiatives, but is Department of Labor is really focused on all forms of direct and indirect compensation that come from a PBM and their affiliated entities. If we can get that level and expansiveness of detail in there where there's not 15 different ways that PBMs can hide things like they have in the past and continue to drive up costs and improve their profit margins, this could be another exciting step forward. So the fact that DOL is looking at this and trying to stand up for self-funded employers, in our opinion, is a very good thing. And it'll be, interesting to watch the comment period play out, as Daniel again said.
And one other point to that, just piggybacking on what Greg had to say and Daniel had to say, we're optimistic that these are all national standards as well. And so given that disproportionately all the member companies here represented function and compete in self-insured markets, obviously the stability and knowability of ERISA is an important aspect of that. And so having a federal regime and a federal paradigm that sets a level of standards and conduct that should be followed is extremely helpful for us as the regulatory environment continues to get complex and robust specifically. So, a federal regime, I think, both from the employer perspective and from the plan perspective and the member companies that we represent, right, I think is a critical aspect of that work. Other questions for any reporters? Well, we certainly appreciate everybody's time and energy, and we're looking forward to next steps at the federal level. And you certainly can reach out to us for any further comment going forward. If you need any just logistical follow-up related to who spoke and who said what, you can contact either me or Ben Keaton for that stuff. And I appreciate especially all our member companies and the CEOs here and the senior leaders who took generous time out of their schedules amidst. For those of you that aren't familiar, January 1 tends to be a particularly busy time for PBMs as they're onboarding new clients and plans. And so taking the time to do this work and advocate for principles and ideas that they think are important to healthcare systems and to a more affordable drug supply chain, I think is important work. So I appreciate them really taking the time and are proud to be associated with their work and impact. So thank you all and looking forward to seeing everybody soon. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.